The world of my bedroom, the panic sound of my wife's voice, the distant wail of the siren, it all dissolved into the warm, golden brilliance. I wasn't traveling through a tunnel. It felt more like the light was unfolding from within me, revealing a place that had been there all along. I found myself standing in a space made of pure living light. There was no ground, no sky, only an infinite, warm presence that hummed with a gentle, silent music. And in the center of that light, a figure stood. I couldn't make out a face in the way we see faces on Earth, but my soul recognized him instantly. An overwhelming feeling of unconditional love washed over me, a love so powerful and pure that it brought me to my knees. Every fear I had ever known, every ounce of shame and inadequacy I had carried, simply evaporated in his presence. I could only weep not from sadness, but from the relief of finally being home. "David," he said, and his voice was not a sound, but a feeling of perfect peace that resonated through my entire being. "You are tired of carrying your burdens alone." I looked up, tears streaming down my spiritual face. "I've tried," I managed to convey, my thoughts laid bare before him, "but I feel so far away from you." He smiled, a smile I could feel in my soul, and the light around us grew warmer. "I will show you the way back," he said. "I will show you the keys to the heart. Remember these 4 things." And then he showed me the first key. The space around me shifted, and I was no longer in the realm of pure light. Instead, I was watching my own life unfold, but not in the way I expected. It wasn't a review of my failures or successes. It was a reel of small, forgotten moments of grace. I felt the warmth of the sun on my face during a family picnic I had barely remembered. I relived the quiet joy of a cup of coffee on a Sunday morning, the steam rising in the cool air. I felt the tiny, trusting grip of my daughter's hand in mine as we walked through a park when she was 5 years old. I saw 1,000 small gifts I had never stopped to acknowledge: a shared laugh with my wife, the deep satisfaction of a finished design, the simple comfort of my own bed after a long day. I wasn't just watching, I was feeling the pure, unfiltered joy of each moment. A wave of gratitude so powerful it was breathtaking washed over me. I saw how incredibly rich my life had been, filled with blessings I had been too busy, too stressed, or too blind to see. Gratitude, the voice of Jesus resonated around me, is the first key. It retunes your soul to see my goodness in all circumstances, not just for them. It is the beginning of all true connection. As the feeling of overwhelming gratitude settled within me, the vision shifted. The reel of joyful moments faded, and the light around me grew softer, more solemn. Now I was shown the moments I had tried to forget. I didn't just see them, I experienced them from every perspective. I felt the sting of a harsh, impatient word as it left my mouth and landed in my wife's heart. I saw the quiet disappointment in my daughter's eyes when I was too distracted by work to truly listen to her story. I felt the cold knot of pride in my own chest during a disagreement with a colleague. The full weight of my mistakes, my selfishness, my moments of unkindness settled upon me like a heavy, dark cloak, chilling my soul. There was no anger or condemnation from the light, only a profound, heartbreaking truth. In the face of this truth, my soul could only whisper the words I had so often failed to say in life: "Forgive me." The moment the thought formed, a brilliant wave of pure, white light washed over me. The dark, heavy cloak of guilt didn't just lift, it disintegrated, turning into motes of light that faded into the brilliance around me. I felt a lightness, a freedom so complete it was like taking my first true breath. Confession, Jesus' voice explained gently, is not punishment, it is an invitation to freedom. When you acknowledge your weakness, my mercy is made strongest. This is the second key. As the profound sense of freedom and lightness settled into my soul, the vision shifted again, preparing me for the third key. Your heart is now clean, Jesus' voice resonated, but your hands are still trying to carry the weight of the world. The space around me changed. I saw myself back on Earth, standing in a barren field. Before me was a colossal boulder, a rough, dark mass of rock. As I looked closer, I could see that its surface was not plain stone. It was a tangled mess of my anxieties. I could see the lines of architectural blueprints, the numbers from financial spreadsheets, and the faces of people I worried about, all swirling together on the rock's jagged surface. I watched my earthly self strain against the boulder, muscles taut, sweat on my brow, trying to move it with all my might, but it wouldn't budge. I was exhausted, defeated, and utterly alone. In the vision, I saw myself finally collapse to my knees, weeping in frustration, and cry out the simple, honest prayer I had been too proud to voice in life: "Help me." The moment the words were spoken, Jesus appeared in the vision, standing beside my struggling self. He didn't push the rock, he simply placed a hand on my shoulder. Instantly, I felt the immense weight of the boulder vanish. It was still there, but it had become as light as a feather. I watched as my earthly self stood up, placed his hands on the rock, and moved it with a single, effortless push. "Your strength is finite," the voice of Christ explained, "but mine is infinite. When you say, 'Help me,' you are not admitting defeat. You are inviting my strength to become yours. This is the third key. You were never meant to carry it all alone." As the feeling of shared strength filled my soul, the vision of the field faded, and I stood before my Lord for the final lesson. "Your heart is grateful, your spirit is free, and your burdens are light," he said. "Now for the journey ahead." The space before me transformed into a dark, winding path that split into a dozen, then 100 different directions. It created a confusing and intimidating maze that disappeared into a shadowy mist. Each path represented a different choice, a different future, a different outcome for myself, my family, and my work. I felt a familiar wave of anxiety, the fear of making the wrong decision, of taking a turn that would lead to regret. I was paralyzed by the uncertainty of it all. Lost in the darkness, my soul remembered the lesson, and I whispered the fourth and final prayer, my voice filled with a newfound trust: "Guide me." The moment the words left me, a single, brilliant thread of golden light descended from the heavens above. It didn't blast away the darkness, but gently laid itself down upon one specific path, illuminating it with a warm, steady glow. It didn't show me the final destination, only the next few steps, but it was clear, safe, and undeniably true. "Your wisdom sees only the turn that lies ahead," Jesus' voice explained, "but mine sees the entire journey from beginning to end. When you trust me and ask for guidance, I promise to make your path clear. This is the fourth key. You do not have to walk into the future alone." The four visions faded, and I stood before Jesus, my soul quiet and full. I was no longer the anxious, disconnected man who had collapsed on his bedroom floor. I was whole, I was at peace, I was home, but I knew it wasn't my time to stay. "You must go back, David," he said, his voice resonating not with a command, but with a loving purpose. "Your heart was aching for connection, and there are millions of hearts just like yours who feel lost and distant. Go and share these four keys. Teach them how to speak to me again with their whole heart." A part of me wanted to protest, to beg to stay in this perfect peace forever. But the mission he gave me filled me with a sense of purpose that was stronger than any personal desire. And then the light began to dim. I felt a gentle but irresistible pull, drawing me backward, away from his presence. The beautiful realm of light began to recede, like a tide pulling away from the shore. I was moving back through the tunnel, and the perfect, silent music of heaven started to fade. In its place, I began to hear the faint, chaotic sounds of earth, a distant, shrill beeping, and the sound of my wife's voice, choked with tears, crying my name. I was pulled faster and faster, the sounds of the hospital growing louder until they were deafening. The last thing I saw was a final, brilliant flash of the golden light, and then I felt a crushing weight, an immense pressure, as my spirit slammed back into my body. A searing pain exploded in my chest, and I gasped, a raw, ragged breath that felt like breathing fire. My eyes flew open. The gentle, loving light of heaven was gone, replaced by the harsh, fluorescent glare of a hospital room. A chorus of beeping machines surrounded me, their frantic rhythm a stark contrast to the perfect peace I had just left. A doctor was shouting, "We've got him, we've got a steady rhythm." But all I could see was my wife's face. She was leaning over me, her hands clutching mine, her face pale and streaked with tears. The moment our eyes met, a look of overwhelming relief washed over her. "David," she sobbed. "Oh, David, you're back. We thought we lost you." I squeezed her hand, a weak but intentional gesture. The pain in my chest was real, the exhaustion was immense, but the peace in my soul was even realer. I looked into her tired, worried eyes and spoke my first words back in the world of the living, a prayer I had just been taught. "Thank you," I whispered hoarsely, "for everything." She looked at me confused, thinking I was thanking her for staying by my side, and I was. But I was also thanking God for her, for the beeping machines, for the scratchy hospital blanket, for the very air I was breathing. The doctors called my recovery a miracle. They talked about the odds, about how lucky I was, but I knew it wasn't luck. It was a gift, a second chance with a sacred instruction manual. From that day on, my life changed. The crushing weight of my work, the constant hum of anxiety, it was still there, but I no longer carried it alone. Every night before I sleep, my prayer is no longer a silent, empty chore. It is the most important conversation of my day. I speak the 4 keys that I was shown, the 4 statements that brought me back to life. I begin with thank you, and I list the small moments of grace from my day, tuning my soul to gratitude. I then whisper, forgive me, releasing the weight of my mistakes and accepting the freedom of His mercy. I surrender my worries with help me, inviting His infinite strength to carry the burdens I cannot. And I face the future with peace by saying, guide me, trusting that His light will illuminate my path. It's not magic, it's a conversation. It's the connection my heart had been aching for my entire life. My name is David. The doctors saved my body, but those 4 prayers, given to me in the heart of eternity, saved my soul.